Good morning, everyone. I was shaking my head because my entry point to this journey that we're all on, and all on our unique paths, was actually when a discarnate light came into my bedroom when I was 4 years old and started talking to me. And of course, at 4 years old, hey, what's not to love? So I began a journey of exploration that I'm still on. I began walking between worlds, and from that moment, I remembered that what we call physical reality is just one realm of a much greater, expanded awareness of what is reality and realities and what is the cosmos. So I then started studying quantum physics because what I really over time wanted to understand is, you know, how my experiences, which are universal spiritual experience really across millennia, how they related to this ostensibly physical world, and also not just the language of the ancients. So I began studying and experiencing and being taught by my discarnate guides, ancient Egyptian mystery teachings, ancient Indian teachings, ancient Chinese teachings, universal wisdom that go alongside universal spiritual experience. But I also needed to learn the language of science, because the language of science is the modern day language that we are more familiar with. Anyway, that step aside for a second, because I really want to ask us all a question. Why do we need strategic development goals? Why do we need strategic development goals? Okay. Because I've only got 15 minutes, I'll give you my answer, and then we can explore the rest later. I'm a cosmologist, and a cosmologist, in my definition, is trying to understand both why reality is as it is and how it is as it is. But I'm also a healer, and having worked with many thousands of people over many years, I've realised that the same emotional traumas that we play out in our own lives, we play out on greater holographic levels of families, groups of friends, ethnic groups, nations, and our collective psyche. So for me, as a healer and as a cosmologist, the SDGs are needed because they're a response to the symptoms of our diseased worldview. Yeah? And as a healer, and I know many of you are too, I know that trying to deal with the symptoms without actually dealing with the cause of the dis-ease will not fully resolve the situation. So my sense is we need the SDGs because our diseased, our fragmented worldview and all that comes from that drives our behaviours. Our beliefs drive our behaviours. If we truly believed on a collective level that all we call reality is unity, that everything truly is interconnected, as Peter's amazing new film is going to show, but far deeper than that, that consciousness isn't something we have, it's something, it's what we and the whole world are. If we truly not just believe that, but live the experience of it, then we wouldn't have the need for SDGs, because our behaviours will be transformed. So whilst I absolutely honour and feel the need to continue the practical grounding and cooperation and learning to come together and co-create resolutions that address the SDGs and that are in line with them and fulfil their aims, nonetheless, I think we need to look deeper and experience deeper. So alongside all of that, what I would say is we need to go back to the cause of the dis-ease of our collective psyche, which I feel is twofold in ways it's playing out. One is the fragmented worldview, and I'll talk more about that in a minute, because the good news is I really truly feel that is on the cusp, as I started to mention last night, of being resolved. The other side of that, as we know from our own personal journey, is how do we heal the emotional traumas within ourselves, between, in relationships, within families, etc. Because the emotional traumas that essentially we embody because of our fragmented worldview. Because when we have a fragmented worldview, we see others as separate. We don't see that interconnectedness. We don't experience that interconnectedness. And so, you know, the way we act, the way we behave, the way we relate comes from that sense of fragmentation rather than that sense of connectedness. And when we do so, our regrets, our fears, our anger, all the stuff that we embody as emotional traumas is dragging us back. It's like carrying emotional luggage with us that on a collective level as well as on an individual level is pretty heavy. And I don't know about you, but I can't fly free if I'm carrying a £100 bag behind me. And on an energetic level and emotional level, that's what we've been doing. I also very much as a healer realise that there is an enormous amount of healing going on in our world and in our collective psyche. And when I look back 30 years to where we are now, we've made incredible progress. We've still got work to do, clearly. And I think what's mirroring back to us from world events is showing us those areas where there is still healing to be done. And a lot of it is still, in fact all of it in my perspective, is coming still from that fragmentation of how we see ourselves and the wider world. So that's what I have a sense of. And for me, it's about going to the cause of the disease and healing that, alongside the practical grounding coming together with the specific aims of the SDGs. So I just want to spend the next 5 or so minutes just explaining why I'm so positive about the resolution to our fragmented worldview. And it comes from a journey that I've been on for 60 years, from that 4-year-old kid, coal miner's daughter in the north of England. You can't get much more grounded than that, all the way through many different realms to this point here. And we've all come on, you know, the scenic route journeys to this point. The previous books I've written, I really enjoyed writing. The book that I've just written, I loved writing. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done in terms of trying to get something expressed in that way. But the book that I've just written, which is the basis of what I'll be sharing today, couldn't have been written until now, literally. I wanted to write it 60 years ago, because what it describes is worlds, realities that I experienced from being 4 years old. The fluidity, the liberation, the holographic nature of everything reflecting each other at all scales of existence and self-awareness and experience. But I couldn't have written it until now because the evidence. I didn't want to write a book which was another, and please forgive me, talking to the choir. I really did not want to write a book talking about beautiful concepts such as you know, spiritual realities and quantum theory, okay? I have to tell you that quantum theory has in many ways been so misunderstood and has caused such confusion that its time now is to resolve it and reconcile it, and I think that's what we're in a position to do. So let me explain. 100 years ago, we had a scientific revolution. And most of us are aware that at that time, the scientists discovered the quantum world, the scale of the tiny, tiny quantum world. What they also realized from that moment is that the nature of reality wasn't what they thought it was. Until then, the scientists had thought that an observer was separate from an observed. What they realized then is that that isn't the case. When we observe something, we make it real. Yeah? They also discovered that things aren't just locally connected, they're non-locally connected, beyond the limits of space and time. Now, those were two amazing clues into the deeper nature of reality, but they were put to one side from a philosophical perspective, and what came forward was the focus on technologies. So technologies that took advantage of the quantum phenomena, took advantage of non-locality, but they didn't answer the question of the elephant in the room, which is what is the real nature of reality. So they almost stopped at that point. The other side of 20th century science was relativity. And from an absolute space and time that had been understood, Einstein came along and said, actually, not like that. Time is relative to your position. Space is relative to your position. Both are relative to your speed. But, here we go, when you combine the two of them, as space-time, then there's no ambiguity. If you measure something in space-time, it's always invariant. Wherever you are in the universe, if you measure something in space-time, that's what it is. So there's a relativity, but there's also an innate inclusivity. And that's crucial, because if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have the laws of physics. We wouldn't have E equals mc squared. We wouldn't have causality. But nonetheless, those two pillars of science in the 20th century were incompatible. Quantum theory doesn't say anything about the nature of time. Relativity theory says nothing about the quantum world. They're inevitably incompatible, and that's what they've been seen as being for 80 years. So what we have is a worldview put forward by science that doesn't address anything to do with spiritual experience, doesn't address the nature of consciousness, and doesn't even in its fullness explain the nature of physical reality. And yet this is the worldview that we continue to live out. No wonder it's fragmented. No wonder we've not been able as yet to reunify the nature of reality. But over the last few years, something absolutely revolutionary has been going on in the undergrowth of leading science. And that is the understanding more and more that information is more fundamental than energy and matter, more fundamental than space and time themselves. And when we meditate, when we sit on a chair and go out into the cosmos and go beyond, and everything feels incredibly beautiful and interconnected and ephemeral, and then we come back, badum. This is a very solid world we live in, yeah? The reality, as the quantum physicists understand, is it's not solid. If we were to expand a proton in an atom to the size of a ping pong ball, the nearest electron would be 2 kilometers away. If we were to raise the size of an atom in interstellar space, the nearest atom would be where Pluto is. That's pretty ephemeral. But not only that, even more so, what we call protons and electrons and neutrons are just excitations. And they're excitations of information. Information expressed as energy, but information. That's why when Irvin talks about the Akashic field, this is much further on than that. But the ancients understood that our universe and its reality was interconnected, and there was information there that could be accessed. Now we're on the leading edge of understanding that information is the basic stuff of reality. Expressed as energy and matter, it's quantum theory. No notion of time. Expressed in a way that allows our universe to evolve and time to flow, it's basically relativity theory. For the first time, by bringing information into the center of creation, we can not only reconcile quantum theory and relativity theory, but far more importantly, we can reunify reality. We're no longer in a universe which is ostensibly physical. We are an informed and holographic universe, a universe soul that's existing and evolving as a unified entity. Literally an entity of self-awareness and consciousness and intelligence and meaning and purpose, which is why Barbara bangs on about it, and Irvin bangs on about it, and I bang on to it. But the difference now is we have the evidence. And the reason I've been immersed for the last 2 years is to go as deeply as I can into what is that leading edge evidence across every field of research, from the tiniest Planck scale of our universe to the wholeness of our universe, and every level in between. And crucially, what's that showing? As Peter showed in his gorgeous Mandelbrot fractal last night. But what that is showing is the same holographic patterns show up on every scale of our universe, and not just through the natural world, but in human behaviours. And this is crucial. 2 astrophysicists a couple of years ago looked at population densities, either as people or stars, and found the same patterns of formation in the growth of cities and the growth of galaxies. Yeah? The same fractal patterns that guide atomic phase transitions, like moving from an insulator to a metal, guide the electromagnetic fields that hold clusters of galaxies arrayed along them. Ecosystems follow the same fractal holographic patterns as does the internet. When you trace people's mobile telephone usage from wherever it is and whatever their lifestyles are, it holds the same dynamic patterns of behaviours as ecosystems. And when you look at the analysis of earthquakes, there is no such thing as a typical earthquake. But if you look at the frequency of earthquakes against their power, what you see is an earthquake that has twice the power is 4 times less likely to happen. You plot that on a graph and it's a straight line graph, earthquakes. In 1948, Lewis Richardson did the same analysis of conflicts, human conflicts. And instead of he looked at the frequency of conflicts, and instead of the earthquake's power, he looked at the number of fatalities per conflict. He looked at over 300 conflicts. Guess what? He plotted them on a graph. Same pattern as earthquakes. And Neil Johnson at the University of Miami is doing the same thing, and he's looked at insurgencies in Iraq and Afghanistan, plotted them on a graph. Number of deaths against frequency. Same graph. So everything in our human behaviours is embodying the same holographic patterns at all scales of our collective activities, from warfare to outbreaks of disease to taking back library books. People have studied taking back library books, God knows why, but they have. All of this shows exactly the same fractal and holographic patterns playing out throughout the whole of the physical world. We've now got the informational evidence that we truly are interconnected, but at a much deeper level. So when Joe talks about folks coming together and the energy fields are swapping information, the energy fields are informational fields. We need to get beyond energy and matter and move into information expressed as energy matter. But on space and time, it's even cooler, because when information is expressed as space and time, essentially, our universe was born at the minimum level of information content, because what we now realise is that, going back to an amazing guy called Ludwig Boltzmann, who discovered the 2 laws of thermodynamics, which is all about how gases behave. 50 years ago, a guy called Claude Shannon came up with exactly the same equation as Boltzmann for the information content of a system. So instead of a process leading from order to disorder, which has been understood for 150 years, we now are beginning to restate the laws of thermodynamics as laws of information. And that second law of information shows us how our universe evolves. Because what it says is our universe was born 13.8 billion years ago, with all the energy and matter it needed to be conserved throughout its lifetime, information expressed as energy matter, but with no notion of time. But information expressed entropically, as that second law says, shows that the informational content of our universe, like a baby, was at the beginning of a lifetime of learning. So basically, with that minimum informational entropy, it can only go one way, which is to evolve, to learn, to move forward. So that is time. Time is the flow of information. Time is our universe thinking. And when you apply the holographic principle to space-time, the smallest in the Big Bang, which wasn't big, wasn't a bang, but an incredibly ordered out-breath of awareness, then space has to expand to holographically include ever more informational, evolution, learning experience within it. So we're now literally on the cusp of bringing all this together to reunify reality. And what that does is it reconciles science informationally with universal spiritual experience. It shows that consciousness isn't something we have, it's what we and the whole world are. And it shows that we are co-creators, microcosmic co-creators of our realities. As Barbara and Irvin said, it gives meaning, it gives purpose. We're here, We're unique representations of, we were talking about trillions of cells in our bodies. Bruce was talking about the trillions of cells in our bodies as a community last night. Well, we are cells in our universe soul's body. And just as a baby is born, so is a universe soul. Just as a baby has all the, if you like, all the energy that makes us up is 13.8 billion years old. It's just changed form and been conserved. But what has been amazing is the information expressed as space-time is our baby, our universe soul, learning, experiencing, growing. Literally, time is our universe thinking. Space is our universe breathing. We are intrinsic, microcosmic co-creators of that breath, that out-breath of the infinity of cosmic mind. This exploratory, evolutionary bubble of intelligence that is literally a thought in the mind of God, a thought in the mind of cosmic mind, as Einstein said, and as Kierkegaard understood. And so when we talk about the SDGs, yes, please let's go and ground them and do all we need to do, but also let's go back to that basic cause of the dis-ease that caused the symptoms of our behaviours that then needed a help from the SDGs. So let's heal our understanding of the nature of reality. Let's reunify. So everything, all our experiences, supernormal phenomena, universal spiritual experience, love, everything is consciousness playing itself. And when we heal that and live that and get that and experience that, then it's like turning on a switch in a room, and where it's been dark and we've not been sure and we've been fumbling around and being fearful of other folks that might be in the darkness, we switch on the light and we realise this is unity consciousness, this is unity awareness, and we are truly all one. So I feel we need to do both. We need to do everything we can to heal our understanding in this way, and we need to show up and figure out how do we ground and come and help the aims of the SDGs. So, thank you.